Paper 2 exam tips. Paper 2 is an hour and a half long and you answer all the questions given to you. Paper 2 will either be on the Liberal reforms, votes for women or the Home Front in Britain during World War I. All you need to do is answer all the questions in an hour and a half. The questions will be similar styles to questions you looked at in class. So whatever you've been taught in class about how to answer the questions, we do the same thing in the Paper 2 exam. To put it very simply and very straightforwardly, for each question, the first line of your answer actually gives them the answer. So if it's a message, it tells you the message in the first line of your answer. If it's a why was this source published, you tell them in the first line of your answer. You then support your answer with 2 pieces of source detail and 2 pieces of own knowledge. That is the same for every question. If the question asks you to use more than one source, then you give source detail and own knowledge from each of the sources they ask you to use in your answer. We know that if it's a message question, we'll look at the point that person is trying to make. What's the message of the cartoon? What's the cartoonist trying to say? We have an accurate first sentence, then we explain it. If it's a why was something published, it's what purpose are they trying to achieve? What end are they trying to achieve by publishing that source? It won't be just to show something. It will tell you stuff and show you stuff, yes. That's not why it's been produced or published. It's been produced or published to make something happen, to encourage people to enlist in the war effort, to encourage men to join up, to encourage women to join Missions Factory, to persuade people to vote for the Labour Party, to persuade people to vote against the Liberal Party, whatever. But it's been produced to make something happen. If we've got 2 sources together about is one source more useful than the other, well, we'd say how one's useful, how the other's useful, and which is most useful. If it's about 2 sources together and how similar they are, if they have got any similarity, then say so. For example, if they're both about the Children's Act, then say so. But if one agrees with it and supports the Children's Act, and one criticises it and disagrees with it, they're different. So one point will say they're similar, but more points will say that they are different. Fine, that's your answer. You have to think carefully about what they're asking you to do and make sure you go far enough. There's a few things the exam board will give you to help you with this. One thing they'll give you is the date each source was produced. This could be really, really important. It will definitely be important and help you to answer the question, but it could be really, really important. The next thing they tell you is who has produced it. It might be the Conservatives, it might be Labour, it might be a suffragette. It might be Asquith, it might be Lloyd George, it might be the British government, it might be a police report, whatever. They will tell you who has produced it and the date it has been produced. You have to consider that in your answer. The purpose and why that source has been produced and published and created should help you to answer all the questions. They'll probably ask you a question you haven't seen before. Fine. I think that's a brilliant idea. It's testing how well you can understand a source on a question you haven't seen before. Stick to the same principles, analyse the source, look at the date, who's produced it, look at the tone of the source, the language of the source. Is it a positive tone, a negative tone? Is it positive language, negative language? Does it fit with what you know? How does it fit to the wider context? Use all those things to help you work out what the answer might be. When it comes to question 6, you need to answer the question using all the sources and make a judgment on a statement. Before you start your answer, do a little table in the exam paper of sources that agree and those that disagree with the statement. You then explain why each of those does so. Source A supports the statement that, whatever it might be, this is because, and then you explain it and use your source detail. And you do that for as many sources as you can. Ideally, you do it for all the sources. But you certainly need to do it for at least 2 sources that agree with the statement and 2 sources that disagree with the statement. Keep your answer focused and explain why and how each source does or does not support the statement. Then overall, come to a judgment, remembering that for each source you've included some pieces of context, some own knowledge to help explain what's happening at the time, and then come to a judgment at the end. Paper 2. Just answer the questions. Focus on what the question's asking you to do, explain and support your answer.